Good evening, everyone. Welcome to NTD Tonight. I'm David Zhang. Here is a preview of some of today's top stories. Cleanup efforts underway for the collapsed Baltimore Bridge. More on what to expect in the coming weeks. President Biden faced a backlash for proclaiming March 31st as Transgender Day of Visibility. The day corresponded with Easter Sunday this year. California's $20 per hour minimum wage law for fast food workers took effect today, and so did some newly signed exemptions. First up, updates on the Baltimore Bridge cleanup plans. Heavy cranes and vessels will help remove debris in the coming weeks. Cleanup efforts in Baltimore are underway to remove thousands of tons of steel debris from the bridge collapse. President Biden says he plans to visit the disaster site this week. Maryland Governor Wes Moore says 4 heavy cranes will be used in the cleanup, along with over 30 vessels in the coming weeks.
This is not just about Maryland. This is about our nation's economy. The port handles more cars and more farm equipment, more than any other port inside this country. And at least 8,000 workers on the docks have jobs that have been directly affected by this collapse. Our economy depends on the Port of Baltimore, and the Port of Baltimore depends on vessel traffic. Maryland's economy and Maryland workers rely on us to move quickly, and it's not just Maryland that is being impacted.
One of those cranes is the largest on the East Coast and can lift about 1,000 tons. Governor Moore says the Army Corps of Engineers and their partners will cut up and dismantle north sections of the bridge for removal. He says that will eventually allow a restricted channel to be opened to help get more vessels to the site of the collapse. Moore is urging Congress to approve federal funding to rebuild the bridge and to get the port economy back on its feet. The U.S. Coast Guard also established a temporary alternate channel for government and commercial vessels directly involved in response efforts. Coast Guard said in a statement, buoys dropped in the water near the bridge collapse site will support the flow of marine traffic into Baltimore and mark the first step toward reopening the port. Former President Trump is expected to put his focus on the border crisis this week. That's as immigration is becoming one of the main issues this election year. And Trump responded to a suggestion by Mexico's president, who recently said the U.S. should send $20 billion to poor countries in Latin America. Otherwise, he said the flow of migrants to the U.S. will continue. Trump now says that he would not pay the sum, adding that he wouldn't even pay 10 cents. The former president told Fox News that the foreign leaders have less respect for the U.S. with President Biden in office. The former president is scheduled to participate in 2 events this week focusing on the crisis. On Tuesday, he plans to make remarks in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's the latest U.S. community affected by a violent crime allegedly committed by an illegal immigrant. A 25-year-old woman was killed in March. The suspect is a previously deported Mexican national. On Thursday, Trump will attend an event called the Border 911 Gala. It's a fundraiser for a nonprofit group headed by the former ICE director under Trump. On Friday, 8 Chinese migrants were found dead off the coast of Mexico. That's after the boat they were traveling in capsized. The bodies of 7 women and a man were found in southern Mexico. The Chinese nationals were heading north towards the U.S. They were guided by a Mexican national. The accident took place when the vessel capsized, leaving the migrants stranded in the sea. Only one of them survived. The victims who haven't been identified yet, authorities are working with the Chinese embassy in Mexico. Convicted murderer Alex Murdaugh was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison in South Carolina today. This sentence will run concurrently with the 27 years he is already serving for similar crimes at the state level. Murdaugh pleaded guilty in November to 22 counts of fraud and money laundering. On top of these financial crimes, he is already serving 2 life sentences for the murders of his wife and son. Murdaugh maintains his innocence in the murders, but he has admitted to the financial misconduct, attributing to his long-term opioid addiction. Prosecutors had recommended a sentence of about 20 years in prison for the federal charges. Iran's consulate in the Syrian capital Damascus was flattened on Monday in what Syrian and Iranian media described as an Israeli airstrike. Syrian state media said at least 6 people were killed and several more were injured. Iranian state media said one of those killed was Mohammad Reza Zahidi, a senior commander in Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps, and that Tehran believed that he was the target of the attack. The Syrian Foreign Minister Faisal Mekdad was spotted at the scene of the strike and expressed his condolences, calling the airstrike unjustified. The Iranian ambassador to Syria, Hussein Akbari, who was not injured, said the incident will not remain without response. Israel declined to comment on the incident. President Joe Biden faced a backlash over the weekend for proclaiming March 31st, which corresponds with Easter Sunday this year, as Transgender Day of Visibility. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on that and the reactions from lawmakers and others.
President Biden issued the proclamation on Friday, calling on all Americans to join together in lifting up the lives and voices of transgender people throughout the nation. Biden issued the first ever presidential proclamation for the day in 2021. The Transgender Day of Visibility was started in 2009 and is held annually on March 31st. But in 2024, the March 31st designation overlaps with Easter, one of Christianity's holiest celebrations. The overlapping angered many conservatives. Entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy wrote on X, Joe Biden declaring the most holy day for Christians as Transgender Visibility Day is a slap in the face to every American, whatever their faith. Former President Donald Trump's campaign accused Biden of being insensitive to religion, writing, "We call on Joe Biden's failing campaign and the White House to issue an apology for the millions of Catholics and Christians across America who believe tomorrow is for one celebration only, the resurrection of Jesus Christ." Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene wrote, "There is no length Biden and the Democrats won't go to mock your faith and to thumb his nose at God." Political consultant Roger Stone wrote on X, Donald Trump prayed with the family of a slain NYPD officer while Joe Biden declared Easter as Transgender Visibility Day. House Speaker Mike Johnson called the decision outrageous and abhorrent on X. Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia disagrees. He responded to Speaker Johnson on Sunday, writing, "Apparently the Speaker finds trans people abhorrent. I think he ought to think about that." A White House spokesperson said the Republicans criticizing Biden are seeking to divide and weaken our country with cruel, hateful, and dishonest rhetoric. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
California's $20 per hour minimum wage law for fast food workers recently got more exemptions. Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill that exempts businesses that operate in specific areas. NTD's Jason Blair has more.
On April 1st, a new law in California went into effect requiring fast food restaurants with 60 or more locations to raise their minimum wage from $16 to $20 an hour, with some exemptions such as bakeries. On March 25th, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed Assembly Bill 610, which adds more exemptions to the minimum wage law.
There is a need to exempt additional restaurants from the definition of fast food restaurant, including such restaurants in airports, hotels, event centers, theme parks, museums, and certain other locations.
Holden, who authored AB 610, said that historically businesses in these locations have established compensation and working conditions that exceed the standards set in the new fast food minimum wage law. Senator Brian Jones said that he wishes there were more exemptions to the new law, also known as AB 1228.
Operators of all kinds of restaurants in my district are really upset about 1228, and they think it's going to be a big problem for their business. And I think we should exempt a lot more restaurants out of this, or let's just undo 1228 altogether.
Alex Johnson, who owns 10 Auntie Anne's and Cinnabon restaurants in California, said the new minimum wage law has hurt his operations.
I want to do right by my employees, and I want to pay them as much as I can. But this bill, AB 1228, has really hit our operations hard. We're no longer hiring. We're not backfilling positions. We're not growing in the state anymore. We're not expanding more locations. And I'm ultimately thinking about selling or closing my business.
The exemptions outlined in AB 610 took effect immediately. Jason Blair, NTD News.
Well, take a short break now, everybody, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come back. Dressed in their best, ready for a mock trial, a group of high school students learn the ins and outs of the American justice system. RFK Jr.'s VP pick, Nicole Shanahan, is generating a lot of buzz on social media. How are voters feeling about his choice? An NFL star allegedly involved in a 6-car collision in Texas. We'll take a look at the details and dash cam footage. Those stories and more coming up on NTD Tonight. Welcome back to NTD Tonight. I'm your host, David Zhang. Dressed in their best attire and ready for a mock trial, let's meet a group of high school students who are learning the ins and outs of the American justice system. NTD's BJ King brings us more from the Los Angeles courthouse.
Juries, judges, and justice is on the minds of these students as they prepare their testimonies and arguments at a Los Angeles courthouse. The reason? For a statewide competition, otherwise known as the 43rd Annual Teach Democracy Mock Trials, where top high school teams from across California will compete in a fictitious trial case, all to educate the next generation of young Americans.
As teams of high school students stream into the Stanley Moss Courthouse, all dressed in their best trial-ready attire, we talk with one LA high school team to share with us details about the case and their roles in the event.
I am a prosecution attorney. I have 2 co-counsel attorneys, and we are arguing in the case of People v. Clark, and we are arguing that the defendant committed first-degree murder to help perpetuate a fraud that was going to take down the company that they were both working for.
The event is organized by Teach Democracy, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that seeks to uphold the principles written in our Constitution through programs aimed to educate young people about our democracy.
Let's see, to help myself and the attorney scores, will the prosecution team please state your names and roles?
So Teach Democracy has done the Los Angeles County mock trial as well as the state finals for over 40 years. And we write the case and we distribute throughout the state of California, where they use our case to argue in the mock trial program.
But you did mention good faith as an issue. Can we discuss that?
The program has reportedly reached over 8,000 students, and we asked the team if they were truly learning from the experience and how they felt about it so far.
It's been really exciting. I didn't expect to do mock trial my senior year. I didn't do it last year, but I had done it in middle school, and I'm really glad I did it again. It's such a nice team to have, and it's such an educational experience.
In addition to expressing their excitement and demonstrating a clear understanding of their roles in the trial, they show a keen awareness of their larger part in the program, preserving American ideals by building their civic education.
And tonight, on behalf of the people of the state of California, I will be delivering the opening statements, direct examining Amari Sunshine as well as Jerry Moyat, and conducting the cross-examination of Nick Yang and Iranian Sunshine.
Our coach is also our history teacher at Louisville, and he talks about how it's so important for all of us to be educated and to do our part, whether that's voting or just being educated about what's going on in the world around us. Democracies die in darkness, and we're doing our part one step at a time.
But these students were not the only ones doing their part, as their coach guided them throughout the entire process.
I've been inspired by them because every time we talk about, well, is this generation somehow not as good as previous generations or not as knowledgeable or interested in what's going on in the world as previous generations, I look at these particular kids and kids that I teach generally, and I'm actually optimistic about the future, not pessimistic about the future.
After this trial, the winning team will go on to represent their state at the national championship in Delaware this May. So, despite fears of our democracy in decline, these students are preserving American ideals through civic engagement programs such as this one. BJ Kang, NTD News, Los Angeles, California.
It's been almost a week since RFK Jr. revealed his VP pick, Nicole Shanahan. So how are voters feeling about his choice? For insight, NTD's David Lamb spoke with Epoch Times reporter Jeff Louderback, who's been covering Kennedy's campaign on the ground.
Jeff, welcome. It's great to see you again. Now, what can you tell us about RFK Jr.'s pick for Vice President Nicole Shanahan and how voters are responding to her so far?
Well, it's generating quite the buzz on social media and in media circles. It's been a long-awaited decision and lots of potential candidates. Nicole Shanahan was a late-breaking favorite, and RFK Jr. likes her because of her age and because they align on a lot of different issues. So voters are still trying to determine who she is. They don't know her very well because she doesn't have great name recognition.
And what about the political and media response to Shanahan? I mean, many in the Democratic sphere are now calling RFK Jr.'s campaign a spoiler for Biden.
That is something that has been said about RFK Jr.'s campaign since the beginning, and he's reiterated many times that he is a spoiler, and he's going to be a spoiler for President Biden and President Trump. He said that when he announced Nicole Shanahan as his running mate, and he believes that now that this stage has been reached, that he can move on, the ticket can move on to the ballot access challenges and more fundraising.
Does that align with what you're seeing and hearing from voters on the ground? Is RFK Jr. now more likely to take away more votes away from Biden than Trump?
It's interesting because in polls, you've seen that he's going to draw more from Biden, and then the DNC is launching a campaign to combat RFK and other third-party candidates to prop up President Biden. When I go to these events, I've covered these events really since last May. I interview a lot of people, and most of them are former Trump supporters. So I'm not buying that he's going to take more votes away from President Biden than President Trump. I think it's about equal, and he believes he has a path to victory, and I think that's possible.
Now, a spokesperson for the Kennedy campaign told Fox News they're keeping all its options open when asked about talks with the Libertarian Party. So, Jeff, you're in constant communication with the Kennedy campaign. Based on what you know, how likely are we to see RFK Jr. put his name on the Libertarian ticket?
Well, it's interesting because when he declared he was running as an independent last October, he said he was declaring his independence from the Democratic Party and all political parties. But since then, he's encountered so many ballot access challenges, and that's going to be ramping up by the DNC and the RNC, that it's possible that the Libertarian Party and RFK Jr. can partner. But after RFK Jr. named Nicole Shanahan as running mate, the Libertarian Party chair, Angela McArdle, said that they were a little bit confused because they don't think that Nicole Shanahan aligns with many of their views.
All right, Jeff Louderback, reported with the Epoch Times. Thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you.
Now, in breaking sports news, Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice is under investigation following his alleged involvement in a crash in Dallas. NTD's Carlos Reyes has more on the story.
In a shocking turn of events, the usually bustling streets of Dallas turned into a scene of chaos and confusion on a fateful Saturday evening. A six-vehicle collision sent shockwaves through the city, leaving authorities scrambling for answers and residents shaken to their core. At the heart of the maelstrom, none other than Rashee Rice, the rising star wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. Reports began to surface linking a vehicle registered to Rice to the wreckage, thrusting the young athlete into the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Eyewitness accounts and preliminary investigations described it as a dangerous game of speed and adrenaline-fueled bravado between two luxury sports cars, a Chevrolet Corvette and a Lamborghini. Then, in an instant, disaster struck. The Lamborghini pushed to its limits, veered off course, careening into the center median wall with devastating force. The impact triggered a chain reaction of collisions involving 4 other unsuspecting vehicles. Amidst the wreckage and chaos, the drivers of the Lamborghini and Corvette made a fateful decision. They fled the scene, leaving behind a trail of destruction and injured victims in their wake. As the dust settled and emergency responders rushed to aid the injured, attention turned to the whereabouts of Rashee Rice. A Texas native with deep roots in the community, Rice's sudden entanglement in this unfolding drama sent shockwaves through the sports world and beyond. Known for his prowess on the football field, Rice had quickly risen through the ranks, becoming a standout wide receiver for the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Last season alone, he led the team in receiving touchdowns with 7, while ranking second in both catches, 79, and receiving yards, 938, trailing only behind Pro Bowl tight end Travis Kelce. With authorities on the hunt for answers and speculation swirling about Rice's potential involvement, the once promising athlete now finds himself at the center of a storm of scrutiny and uncertainty. As the investigation unfolds and the search for truth intensifies, one thing remains clear. The consequences of reckless behavior on the road can be swift, severe, and far-reaching. Carlos Reyes, NTD News.
Stay tuned for China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer coming up next. And in more China news, a Chinese man is arrested after trespassing a U.S. military base in California Wednesday. More details coming tonight at 9:30 p.m. at China in Focus with Tiffany Meyer. And that's all we've got for you tonight. We would like you to join us again on NTD Tonight every weekday at 9 p.m. I'm David Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.